Greetings, everyone! I recently had the opportunity to go to Disney World to conduct some field research on Disney Transport. With this new information, along with new graphics created for my trip planner, I figured it was time to redo my Disney Transport Explained video from last year. Without further ado, let's get started. First, we need to take a look at the geographical context of Disney World. In my opinion, in order to understand a transit system, you first have to understand the geography of the area the system serves. The Walt Disney World Resort is a massive entertainment complex southwest of Orlando that is estimated to be 27,000 acres. It opened on October 1st, 1971, with one theme park and three resorts, and has since expanded to encompass four theme parks, one shopping and entertainment district, two water parks, two mini golf courses, 21 Disney-owned resorts, four Disney-owned golf courses, a sports complex, and numerous third-party owned resorts and golf courses. The huge amount of stuff can be split up into several distinct areas, which are each anchored by a major attraction. The oldest area, located to the north, is the Magic Kingdom area, which consists of the Magic Kingdom theme park, five Disney-owned resorts, one third-party owned resort, three golf courses, and the Transportation and Ticket Center, which functions as the transfer center for the Monorail and houses the parking lot for the Magic Kingdom. The next area is the Epcot Hollywood Studios area, located in the center of the property. It is anchored by the second and third theme parks to open, Epcot and Hollywood Studios respectively. It also contains seven Disney-owned resorts, eight third-party owned resorts, a mini golf course, and a third-party owned golf course. Third is the Disney Springs area, located in the east and anchored by the Disney Springs Shopping and Entertainment District, formerly known as Downtown Disney. In addition to Disney Springs, there are four Disney-owned resorts, seven third-party owned resorts, the Typhoon Lagoon Water Park, and a golf course located in the area. The last area is the Animal Kingdom area, which is in the east part of the property and is anchored by the Animal Kingdom theme park. It also contains the ESPN Wide World of Sports sports complex, the Blizzard Beach Water Park, five Disney-owned resorts, and a mini golf course. To move the 50 to 60 million guests that visit the property each year around, Disney operates a vast transit network known as Disney Transport. The system broadly operates on a hub-and-spoke model, with the theme parks and Disney Springs as hubs and the resorts as spokes. A hub-and-spoke model is a transportation system operating principle that sees numerous routes emanating from a central hub or hubs going to many different places known as spokes. In a typical hub-and-spoke model, there are not many connections between individual spokes. This is the model used by most airlines in planning their networks. Disney Transport is a multimodal system, operating buses, monorails, ferry, and a cable car, as well as parking lot trams, which sort of count but also sort of don't. Disney Transport is massive, operating the third largest transit system in Florida by number of vehicles, behind only Miami-Dade Transit and the Jacksonville Transit Authority. Unlike many transit systems, many of Disney Transport's stops operate more like theme park ride queues, with a designated queue path and ropes and chains preventing people from going onto the platforms. My guess is this is done due to the large crowds and due to many people riding the system having no clue how to be smart and courteous while riding transit. One last overall thing to note is that the entire system operates fare-free, and riders do not need a theme park ticket to ride. We'll start with the most famous mode in the Pantheon, and arguably one of the most famous transit systems in the United States, the Walt Disney World Monorail system. The system is roughly 13.3 miles long with 3 lines and 6 stations. The hub of the system is the aforementioned Transportation and Ticket Center, which acts as the transfer point for all 3 lines. It is among the busiest monorail systems in the world, serving roughly 22 million passengers each year. The first line is the Resort Line, which runs in a 2.9-mile loop around the Seven Seas Lagoon, stopping at the Transportation and Ticket Center and Magic Kingdom only. In the mornings, the line runs counterclockwise, and in the evenings, the line runs clockwise. The Resort Line also runs the 2.9-mile loop around the Seven Seas Lagoon, operating clockwise at all times. In addition to the TTC and Magic Kingdom, the Resort Line calls at the Polynesian Village Resort, the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa, and the Contemporary Resort. At the Contemporary, the monorail beams run through the building itself on the 5th floor. The Express Line uses the outer beam, and the Resort Line uses the inner beam. The last line is the 7.5-mile Epcot line, running as a shuttle between the TTC and Epcot's main entrance. This line is odd for North American rail services in that it uses left-hand running, with trains utilizing the beam on the left, unlike the norm of driving on the right. At Epcot, trains circle the park's hub before stopping at Epcot Station. At the Transportation and Ticket Center, there is a cross-platform transfer from the Express line to the Epcot line. A cross-platform transfer is when passengers changing trains can do so without leaving the platform they are on. The transfer is one way due to the Express and Epcot line platforms at the TTC using Spanish Solution boarding. where passengers board the train from one side and disembark from the other, speeding up passenger flows. This layout is also used for both lines at the Magic Kingdom and at Epcot. The monorail is automated, with pilots sitting in the cab to monitor systems and manually drive in an emergency. Trains are dispatched from stations, and doors are controlled from panels located on each platform. Unfortunately for accessibility, the system does not have level boarding, requiring passengers to take a step up into the trains. Portable ramps are moved by cast members to allow wheelchairs to board the train. These are notably not used for strollers. The last thing I want to discuss with the monorail are the trains themselves, which I think are pretty cool. For the nerdy among us, the trains draw power from third rails mounted to the side of the beam, which are electrified at 600 volts DC, which is in the standard range for metro systems. The trains are known as the Mark VI monorail due to being the sixth model of monorail used at the American Disney parks. They were built by Bombardier Transportation and entered service in 1989, making them very old by transit vehicle standards. If you combine the annual ridership, which is a rough estimate and changes from year to year, with the length of time the trains have been in service, 36 years, you get the fact that these trains have seen a total of 700 to 800 million passengers over the course of their lives. That's roughly 58 to 67 million riders per train, assuming each train is used an equal amount of time. To put those numbers into perspective, these trains have carried the equivalent of roughly twice the American population over their lives. The trains have been refurbished many times over the years to extend their lives, and there seems to be no sign that they will be replaced anytime soon, which on the one hand is good as I am nostalgic for them, but on the other hand is bad as they are starting to show their age despite the refurbishments. Instead of using numbers to identify the trains like most transit systems, each monorail is given a color designation, which is painted as a stripe on the side of the train. The trains are maintained at the so-called Monorail Shop, located directly above the roundhouse for the Disney World Railroad, which itself is located to the northeast of the Magic Kingdom. The next mode we'll look at are the ferries. At Disney World, there are three distinct ferry systems. The first is the Magic Kingdom Area Ferries, serving as the name would suggest, the Magic Kingdom area. The system has 5 lines and 9 launches with a total length of roughly 6 miles. The first line is the Magic Kingdom / Transportation and Ticket Center route, which runs for 0.6 miles from the TTC to the Magic Kingdom, and acts as an alternate route to the Express line. This line utilizes by far the largest boats at Disney World, which is necessary to transport thousands of people across the Seven Seas Lagoon each day. At the Magic Kingdom, this line serves the East Ferry launch. The other 4 lines share a fleet of smaller boats, the motor launches, and their slightly larger cousins, the motor cruisers. Only the big ferries and motor cruisers are wheelchair accessible, so most routes use a mix of both boat types to remain accessible. The Gold Flag route runs in a 1.4-mile loop starting and ending at the Magic Kingdom's West Ferry launch, also serving the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa and the Polynesian Village Resort in that order, the reverse of the resort line. The Green Flag route runs from the Magic Kingdom's Central Ferry launch to the Fort Wilderness Resort and Campgrounds settlement area and has a length of 1.5 miles. The Red Flag route also runs from the Central Ferry launch, but instead of running to Fort Wilderness, it runs for 0.9 miles to the Wilderness Lodge. The last line is the Blue Flag route, which runs in a 1.6-mile bi-directional loop serving the Contemporary Resort, the Wilderness Lodge, and the Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground settlement area. This line exclusively uses motor launches and is therefore not accessible. Another quirk of this line is that it begins running at 3 p.m. each day, unlike the other ferry routes, which begin running before the park opens. The 3 ferries, 6 motor launches, and 4 motor cruisers are stored and maintained at a facility to the north of Bay Lake, very close to the Monorail Shop. One final fact to close off this section is that the motor launches have been in service since Disney World's opening all the way back in October 1971, making them over 50 years old. The next system is the Friendship Boats, which operates as a single 1.4-mile-long line with 5 launches. Using a fleet of 7 boats, which are slightly larger than the motor cruisers, it runs from Epcot's International Gateway to Hollywood Studios via the Boardwalk Inn, the Yacht and Beach Club resorts, which share a launch, and the Swan and Dolphin resorts, which also share a launch. The Swan and Dolphin resorts have the distinction of being the only third-party owned resorts at Disney World to be served by Disney Transport. The boat's maintenance facility is located to the east of Epcot's World Showcase. These boats are also old, having first entered service when Epcot opened in 1982, making them over 40 years old. The last ferry system at Disney World is the Sassagoula River Cruise, which serves Disney Springs and its area resorts. It has 4 lines and 6 launches across a network length of 4.4 miles. The system uses a fleet of 15 small boats, which are slightly larger than the motor launches. All 4 lines stop at the Marketplace Dock at Disney Springs, which is located to the far east of the complex. The Blue Flag route runs from Disney Springs to the Treehouse Villas at Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa, via the main part of Saratoga Springs, with a route length of 1 mile. The Green Flag route runs from Disney Springs to the Old Key West Resort and is 1.5 miles long. The Purple Flag route runs from Disney Springs to Port Orleans Resort French Quarter and is 1.4 miles long. The Yellow Flag route runs from Disney Springs to Port Orleans Resort Riverside via French Quarter and is 1.9 miles long. The maintenance facility is located to the east of Port Orleans. The next mode is the Disney Skyliner, a 3-line gondola lift system. A gondola lift is a type of cable car where the cabins are attached to a loop of cable which is moved via stationary engines. The D-Line model, built by Doppelmayr Cable Car, used by Disney, allows cabins to be detached from the cable at stations, allowing them to move slower to facilitate easier loading and unloading. There are 304 cabins, each of which can hold 10 passengers. This gives the system the capacity to transport 3,040 passengers at a time, which sounds like not a lot until you consider that the system isn't very long and utilizes a continuous loop of cabins, meaning the passenger throughput remains high despite the low capacity of each cabin. The system has 5 stations and has a length of 2.8 miles. At all stations except Riviera, cabins can be taken out of circulation and stopped to allow people with mobility devices to board without interrupting the normal flow of cabins. At Riviera, the line must be stopped to facilitate the loading and unloading of mobility devices. When there is lightning or high winds nearby, the system closes and buses are used to fill in on the routes. All 3 lines start at a central hub at the Caribbean Beach Resort, which is also where the maintenance facility and storage facility and the winding engines are located. The first line runs to Epcot's International Gateway via the Riviera Resort and is 1.5 miles long. The second line runs to Hollywood Studios and is 0.7 miles long. The last line runs to a station located between the Arctic Animation and Pop Century Resorts and is 0.6 miles long. The last and biggest main mode at Disney World is the bus system, which has 84 routes, 7 stations, and 57 stops. This system has some insane statistics, including an annual ridership of 73 million, which makes it the 13th busiest bus system in the US, and the 3rd busiest by passengers per square mile, surpassed only by San Francisco's Muni and New York City's MTA. The routes can be split up into 8 categories. The first category is routes running from the resorts to the Magic Kingdom. Service runs from all resorts except those served by the Monorail. The next category is routes running from the resorts to Epcot's main entrance. Service is available from all resorts except those served by the Monorail, Friendship Boats, and Skyliner. Third is the buses running from resorts to Hollywood Studios, which is available from all resorts except those served by the Friendship Boats and Skyliner. Fourth is the routes running from the resorts to Animal Kingdom, which is available from all resorts. Fifth is the routes running from the resorts to Disney Springs, which is also available from all resorts. Sixth is the route serving water parks. Typhoon Lagoon is served by a bus from Disney Springs only, while Blizzard Beach is served by buses from Animal Kingdom, Coronado Springs, and the All-Stars resorts. Seventh are the Interpark buses, which run from Animal Kingdom to all other theme parks and from the Magic Kingdom to Hollywood Studios. Eighth are the internal resort shuttles, which provide transportation inside some of the larger resorts. More on this category in a bit. Generally, each resort gets its own bus line to each theme park and Disney Springs. However, there are some resorts that share buses due to the resorts being smaller. Polynesian Village and Grand Floridian, Contemporary and Wilderness Lodge, and Yacht and Beach Clubs and Boardwalk Inn all share theme park and Disney Springs buses. The 2 Port Orleans resorts share the Disney Springs buses, as they also have access to the Sassagoula River Cruise. Last, all 3 All-Stars resorts share Blizzard Beach buses. The buses from Magic Kingdom to Wilderness Lodge and Fort Wilderness are shared as well. Inside larger resorts, theme park and Disney Springs buses run an internal loop to move people around the resort. This is also where the 8th category of bus route comes in, as some other resorts have dedicated internal shuttles that don't run to theme parks or Disney Springs. At Animal Kingdom Lodge, theme park buses serve Kidani Village first, followed by Jambo House. For Disney Springs buses, the order is reversed, providing 2-way transportation between the resort's 2 areas. At Coronado Springs, theme park buses begin their loop at stop 2 before running clockwise to stop 1. Disney Springs buses begin their loop at stop 1 and end their loop at stop 4. Blizzard Beach buses only serve stop 1. At Caribbean Beach, Disney Springs and Magic Kingdom buses run a clockwise loop, beginning at Martinique and ending at Aruba. Animal Kingdom buses also run clockwise, although they begin at Jamaica and end at Trinidad. Caribbean Beach also has a dedicated internal loop, which stops at all resort areas as well as the Skyliner station. At Old Key West, theme park buses begin at South Point Road before serving all stops from south to north, ending at Hospitality House. Disney Springs buses begin at Hospitality House, then run to South Point's Road and serve the remaining stops from south to north. At Saratoga Springs, theme park buses start at the grandstand before running clockwise to the Springs. Disney Springs buses begin at the Springs and run clockwise to Congress Park. Saratoga Springs also has an dedicated internal shuttle running between the Springs and 2 bus stops at the Treehouse Villas. At Port Orleans Riverside, theme park buses run clockwise, starting at West Depot and ending at South Depot. Disney Springs buses also run clockwise, but begin at South Depot and end at East Depot. The last resort with internal service is Fort Wilderness, which has 3 dedicated internal shuttle routes to transport people around the huge expanse that is the resort. All 3 routes begin at Outpost, which is where the parking lot and check-in is located, and end at Settlement, which is where most of the entertainment for the resort is located. The purple route additionally serves Area 2000 and the Creekside Meadow. The orange route serves Area 600, 800 through 1300, 2100 through 2800, and the Meadow. The yellow route serves areas 300, 500, 1400 through 1900, and the Meadow. It also extends past Settlement to the Wilderness Lodge. It is worth noting that at Fort Wilderness, Magic Kingdom buses serve Settlement, while all other theme park and Disney Springs buses serve Outpost. The bus system has 424 buses, most of which, roughly 95%, are of the Gillig low-floor model. This is rounded out by 6 New Flyer XD60s and 16 Novabus LFS, 10 40-foot and 6 60-foot. The buses utilize biodiesel instead of traditional diesel, reducing emissions slightly. An interesting thing about the bus is that the wheelchair ramp on each bus is located at the rear door, whereas most transit systems have the ramp at the front door. There are 2 maintenance facilities, one next to the Magic Kingdom Car Care Center, and one located to the north of Animal Kingdom. There are also 2 layup yards where buses can be stored when maintenance isn't required, located at Epcot's main entrance and the Transportation and Ticket Center. The last thing I want to say about the buses is that Disney has absolutely nailed it with the liveries. While some buses have a generic Disney Transport livery, many instead have the faces of the Fab Five or full body wraps depicting characters from various Disney and Disney-owned properties. The artists who designed these wraps did an outstanding job, as one would expect with Disney. The one complaint I have about these liveries, and the liveries on the Skyliner, is that they cover the windows, making it hard to see out the bus. Now that we've covered all 4 main modes, let's pivot and turn our attention to passenger information systems, which are especially important at Disney World, as many people are visiting for the first time and have never ridden public transit before coming to Disney World. As far as basic wayfinding signage goes, Disney, as expected, does an amazing job. Signage is clearly legible and fits the theming of whatever resort or area the sign finds itself in. As far as onboard announcements, they also mostly do a good job, with the pre-recorded announcements playing on all modes except the Sassagoula River Cruise. Manual announcements are also used on all modes except the buses. The announcements are clear and concise, and even manage to feed into the Disney magic while they're at it. Unfortunately, the announcements are oftentimes too quiet to be heard over engine and road noise and guest chatter. The last passenger information system thing I want to talk about is next to vehicle displays. This is applicable to all modes except the Skyliner, as it uses a continuous chain of cabins. All resort bus stops that are served by theme park and or Disney Springs buses have very well laid out next bus indicator screens. However, these screens only display the arrival times for theme park, water park, and Disney Springs buses, not internal resort shuttles. As such, bus stops served by internal resort shuttles only lack these screens. These screens are also notably absent from the bus stations at theme parks, water parks, and Disney Springs, and are also notably absent from all ferry launches and monorail stations. On top of that, there is no way to track arrival times on your phone or other mobile device, despite most other transit agencies having that ability for years. Let's now turn our attention to the parking lot trams, which bring people from their cars to the entrances of the theme parks. Disney calls them trams, but the technical term for what these vehicles are is a road train. I personally think they are really cool, although the reason for having them is the most unfortunate one. That reason is, of course, the United States' crippling dependence on cars. If you look on Google Earth, you'll see that the parking lots for each of the theme parks is about as big as the theme park it serves, which is just insane. The tugs used to haul the trams are based on aircraft tugs. They are stored in the parking lots and maintained at a facility to the west of Animal Kingdom. The last mode operated by Disney is a luxury ride-share service dubbed Minnie Vans after the famous character. This is operated in conjunction with Lyft and does exactly what any other rideshare would do, except it is limited to Disney World's property and drivers are paid employees of Disney. The last thing Disney Transport related that I want to talk about is Lynx. Lynx is the public bus operator for the Orlando area and as such has a few routes that serve Disney World, 10 to be exact. 5 of them only run 1 or 2 round trips per day, so I won't mention them further here. The other 5 run more frequently, so they are actually usable for spur-of-the-moment trips. First up is the 56, which runs from the Disney University to Kissimmee via the Transportation and Ticket Center. At Kissimmee, passengers can transfer to Sunrail and Amtrak services, as well as many other Lynx routes. Next is the 300, which runs from Disney University to downtown Orlando via the TTC and Disney Springs, making no intermediate stops past Disney World. At Disney Springs, Lynx has its own transfer center at the west of the complex. The 307 runs exclusively inside Disney World, running as a loop from Disney Springs to the Epcot backstage area and finally to the Bonnet Creek area resorts along Chelonia Parkway. The 311 runs from Disney Springs to Orlando Airport, providing a convenient and cheap way to get from the airport to Disney World. Along the way, it stops at the Destination Parkway Superstop, where transfers can be made to buses to Universal Epic Universe, and the Florida Mall Superstop, and the Sand Lake Road Station, where transfers to Sunrail can be made. Numerous other routes also stop at the superstops, providing connections to even more places throughout the Orlando area. Last is the 350, which runs from Disney Springs to downtown Orlando via the Buena Vista Parkway Resorts, SeaWorld, and the Destination Parkway Superstop, making no intermediate stops after Destination Parkway. That's my redone look at Disney Transport. As I alluded to at the beginning of the video, I am working on a trip planner to help people get around Disney World with Disney Transport. As of the release of this video, it is still in the beta stages and is therefore not feature complete and still has lots of bugs. It is available to play around with at the link in the description. If, in the process of playing around with it, you find a bug, please send an email to the email listed on the webpage to report it so I can try to fix it. The transit diagram used in the video is also available for free on my Patreon. Speaking of, if you like the stuff I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon or right here through YouTube memberships. Thanks for watching, and as I say at Disney World, have a magical day.